The days following that gathering seemed to stretch endlessly, each one heavier than the last. The pressure of unspoken truths was beginning to take its toll on the group. As the semester wore on, Ria found herself retreating further into her art. She spent hours in the studio, where the world outside seemed to vanish. But the doubts crept in when she was alone. Every brushstroke, every sketch, felt like a rebellion against everything she had been taught to believe. Her parents had worked hard to give her the best education, but what they failed to understand was that she didn't want to follow their prescribed path. Art had always been her escape, her way of seeing the world beyond the confines of her family's expectations. Sasha, too, was struggling. Her activism had always been a way to channel her emotions, to feel like she was making a difference in a world that had left her broken. But her dedication to the causes she fought for seemed to be a facade, a way to bury her own heartache. The constant pressure to be the strong one for everyone else weighed heavily on her. Her family's fractured relationships were a constant reminder of her inability to change the one thing she couldn't control. Late at night, when the world was quiet, she wondered if the battles she fought on the outside were just a reflection of the battles she fought within herself. Rob's struggle was more subtle, but no less damaging. The football field was where he felt most alive, but even that had started to feel like a performance. Expectations from his coaches, teammates, and even the college administration had begun to overshadow his love for the sport. The cheers from the crowd, the accolades, all of it felt hollow. He couldn't remember the last time he had played for the sheer joy of it. He had been so focused on proving himself that he had forgotten why he had fallen in love with the game in the first place. The weight of his reputation had become a constant burden, and he didn't know how to free himself from it. As for Sonny, his charm and carefree nature had begun to feel like a mask he couldn't take off. He had always been the one to keep everyone else laughing, to offer a distraction from their troubles. But lately, even his humor couldn't shield him from the loneliness that gnawed at him. He had spent so much time making sure everyone else was okay that he had neglected his own emotional needs. Deep down, he feared that if he ever let his guard down, the people around him would see that he wasn't as carefree as he appeared. The pressure to maintain the illusion of protection was exhausting. One evening, as the group met at their favorite hangout spot, a small cafe tucked away on the edge of campus, something shifted. It was the first time in weeks that they had all been together outside of class. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, and for once, the silence between them wasn't comfortable. Ria stirred her drink absent-mindedly, her gaze fixed on the window. The soft hum of conversation from other tables barely registered in her mind. She had come to a decision that afternoon, one that felt both freeing and terrifying. Her scholarship had been offered to her on a silver platter, yet she had remained undecided for so long. Her parents' disappointment had haunted her, but something inside her had shifted. She had realized that it was her life to live, not theirs. Sasha, on the other hand, was fighting her own inner turmoil. She had always carried the burden of her family's dysfunction, feeling like she had to be the one to fix everything. But as much as she tried to hide it, the cracks in her own facade were starting to show. She was tired of pretending to have all the answers, tired of fighting battles she didn't know how to win. The truth was, she didn't have the strength to save anyone anymore, not even herself. Rob had been staring at his phone for what seemed like hours. The constant stream of messages from his coach, the team, his parents, had become a blur. None of it mattered anymore. He had tried to please everyone for so long that he had lost sight of what he truly wanted. He could no longer ignore the voice inside him that told him to walk away, to find something that made him feel alive again. Sonny watched his friends, each of them lost in their own thoughts, their struggles unspoken but palpable in the air around them. He couldn't help but feel disconnected from them, as though a chasm had opened between them without warning. He had been the one to hold it all together, but he had never realized how much of himself he had lost along the way. In that moment, the weight of his own loneliness pressed down on him, and he understood that no amount of laughter or jokes could fix what was broken inside. The silence stretched on, uncomfortable and thick. Each of them sat with their own truth, but none of them were ready to speak it aloud.